Medic SEAL. Why are you hiding in a Denver hospital? That was the question Admiral Warren Kincaid was never supposed to ask. Not during a routine medical check. Not while a quiet trauma nurse stood beside his bed with blood running down her torn sleeve. Most people walk into a hospital hoping to be saved. They never imagined the person holding the syringe might be carrying a classified war inside her own skin. Outside, snow pressed against the windows of St. Meridian Medical Center. Inside, monitors beeped, nurses whispered, and one faded tattoo near Claire Bennett's shoulder turned a normal night shift into a military lockdown. Stay with this story, because every scar has a witness, every lie has a cost, and some ghosts don't come back for revenge. They come back with evidence. Like this video and comment where you're watching from. 12 hours before Admiral Warren Kincaid looked at Claire Bennett's torn sleeve and saw a dead woman staring back at him, the night at St. Meridian Medical Center had already begun to break people. Denver was buried under wet March snow. It came down thick and gray, sticking to ambulance roofs, melting against the glass doors, turning the hospital entrance into a smear of headlights, slush, and red strobes. Inside the emergency department, the heat ran too high. The coffee tasted burned, and the air carried the sharp mix of antiseptic, blood, plastic tubing, and fear. Claire moved through it without hurry. That was the first thing people noticed about her. Everyone else in the trauma bay had a rhythm shaped by pressure. Residents rushed. Nurses snapped instructions. Surgeons barked names over monitors and oxygen pumps. Claire never raised her voice. She slipped between beds, curtains, carts, and shouting bodies with a calm that felt almost unnatural.
She did not look cold. She did not look cruel. She looked focused, as if every sound in the room had a weight, and she alone knew which ones mattered. A teenage boy sat on bed 7 with a broken nose, one eye swelling shut, his mother crying into a hospital blanket beside him. Claire passed him a clean towel without stopping. An old man in bed 4 kept reaching for the IV in his wrist. Claire caught his hand gently before he pulled it free. "Not that one, Mr. Wallace," she said. He blinked at her through cloudy eyes. "My wife is waiting." Claire glanced at the empty chair beside him, then tucked the blanket higher over his chest. "I know," she said softly. "Stay warm for her." Then she was gone, already moving toward the next monitor alarm. Her badge said Claire Bennett, RN, Trauma Services. To the staff, that name meant competence. It meant silence. It meant the nurse who took the worst room, the worst patient, the worst hour, and never asked anyone to admire her for it. She was 34, maybe 35. Nobody knew for sure. Her personnel file said 34. Her eyes made people think older. She had dark blonde hair that she kept in a tight knot at the base of her skull. No wedding ring, no family photos taped inside her locker, no gossip in the break room, no drinks after shift, no holiday plans, no visible tattoos, at least none anyone had seen. The nurses had theories at first: divorce, witness protection, religious family, dad breakup, military widow. After a while, theories became boring. Claire gave them nothing to feed on. She came in, did the work, washed blood from her hands, and left through the staff exit while everyone else wondered why she always wore a long-sleeve shirt beneath her scrubs. Even when the hospital boilers turned the ER into a furnace, only one rule about Claire became common knowledge: do not touch her right shoulder. A new nurse learned that 3 months earlier when she tried to squeeze past Claire in the medication room and placed one hand there for balance. Claire spun so fast the medication cup scattered across the counter. Her grip closed around the younger woman's wrist hard enough to stop blood flow. Then Claire saw who it was. She let go. "I'm sorry," she said.
The nurse laughed nervously. "No problem." But she did not touch Claire again. By 8:40 that evening, the waiting room was full. The trauma board was red, and the snowstorm had turned the city mean. People drove too fast on slick roads. Drunks fell from curbs. Knives came out in parking lots. The emergency department absorbed all of it and kept breathing. Dr. Russell Kane stood at the center of Trauma 3, tying on a new gown with bloody gloves already on his hands. He was tall, silver-haired, and handsome in a way that made donors trust him and residents fear him. He liked precision, hierarchy, and the sound of his own diagnosis. "Where is Bennett?" he called. Claire appeared at his left with a chest tube kit, 2 units of warmed blood, and a suction line already connected. Kane looked down at the kit, then at her. "I did not order that." "No," Claire said. "You're going to." The ambulance doors burst open before he could answer. 2 paramedics rolled in a construction worker in his late 20s. Concrete dust coated his hair. Blood soaked the front of his orange work vest. A steel nail had punched through the upper right side of his chest and disappeared beneath the skin near the collarbone. "Fall from a framing platform," the lead paramedic said, voice tight. "Nail gun discharge at close range. Pressure drop twice en route. He was talking 5 minutes ago." The patient was not talking now. His lips were blue, his breathing came in wet, shallow pulls. His eyes rolled under half-clothed lids. Claire stepped to the monitor as the team transferred him. Heart rate 148, blood pressure 76/42, oxygen falling. The monitor began to scream. Kane pressed gloved fingers around the entry wound. "Get portable x-ray," he said. "Prep for CT. I need trauma surgery paged." Claire looked at the man's chest. One side rose, the other barely moved. His neck veins stood out thick and strained. His skin had gone waxy. She heard a faint bubbling under the breath sounds. Not loud, not obvious. Easy to miss under alarms and human panic. "He does not have time for CT," she said. Kane did not look at her. "I heard you. He is building pressure in the chest. I said I heard you." The patient's hands clawed at the sheet. His body arched. The oxygen monitor dipped lower. Claire was already opening the kit. Kane's head snapped toward her. "Bennett." She tore the sterile wrap with one clean motion. "His trachea is shifting. Do not make me repeat myself."
Claire looked at him then, not angry, not pleading, simply present. "If we wait, he dies on the table before the scan finishes." Kane stepped closer, his voice low enough that only she heard it. "You are a nurse. Do not forget the edge of your lane." The patient convulsed. A respiratory therapist swore. Claire picked up the scalpel. Kane reached for her wrist. He never touched her. Somehow her arm was no longer where it had been. His fingers closed on empty air. Claire was already at the patient's side. Left palm braced against the ribcage, right hand steady. "Local Kane." Snapped. "No time." "Bennett." Her blade moved. A short incision. Exact angle. No hesitation. Blood welled dark and fast. Claire opened the tissue, guided the tube with her fingers, and pushed past resistance. The motion was not careless. It was practiced in places without lights, without imaging, without permission. A rush of blood and air hid the drainage canister. The patient dragged in a full breath. The monitor changed tone. Not safe, but alive. For 3 seconds, no one spoke. Kane stared at the tube, then at Claire's face. "That technique is not in our protocol." Claire taped the line and checked the seal. "It is now in his chart." A resident gave a nervous laugh. It died immediately when Kane turned his eyes on him. Claire stripped off her gloves. Blood is running. Pressure is coming up. He still needs the O. Kane's jaw worked once. "You and I are going to discuss this." Claire stepped away from the bed. "After he lives." She pushed through the swinging doors before anyone could stop her. The hallway outside Trauma 3 was cooler, quieter by comparison, though still loud enough to make normal people flinch. Claire walked to the staff sink and turned the water as cold as it could go. Her hands went under the stream. Blood spiraled down the drain. She watched it disappear. For a moment, the white sink was not a sink. It was snow lit by fire. The drain was a crater. The scream of the monitor became the scream of rotor blades tearing through mountain air. Her breath stopped halfway in her chest. A man was shouting her name. Not Claire. Maya. She closed her eyes. Smoke, rock, burning fuel. Someone trapped beneath twisted metal. A hand reaching through flame. Maya. Stay with me. Claire opened her eyes. The bathroom mirror showed a woman in blue scrubs, pale under fluorescent light, wet hands braced on porcelain.
A nurse, nothing more. She leaned closer to the mirror. "Claire Bennett," she whispered. Her voice barely moved the air. "Denver, Colorado. St. Meridian Medical Center. Trauma nurse." She waited until her pulse slowed. Then she pulled her right sleeve down over the faint ridge hidden beneath the fabric. "Maya is dead." A knock came at the door. Claire straightened. "Occupied." "It's Nora," a voice said from the other side. Nora, Delgado, charged nurse, mother of 3, smoker of half cigarettes behind the loading dock when the night got cruel. "You okay?" Claire dried her hands. "Yes, that was a hell of a save." Claire opened the door. Nora studied her face. "Kane is furious. The patient is alive. That usually makes surgeons less mad." "Not him." Nora gave her a small smile. "You ever get tired of being mysterious?" Claire moved past her. "You ever get tired of asking?" "Number?" Claire almost smiled. "Almost." They walked back into the main ER. A security guard guided a handcuffed man toward an exam room. A child vomited into a pink basin. Somewhere, a woman prayed in Spanish with both palms pressed to her mouth. Nora lowered her voice. "You got someone waiting at home?"
Number cat, number plant, dead. At least you tried. I did not. Nora shook her head. You are the saddest person I know. Claire checked the board. That is statistically unlikely in this building. Nora laughed, but her eyes stayed gentle. You know, people here like you. Claire looked at her. Nora shrugged. They are scared of you, sure. Kane probably dreams about filing complaints against you, but they like you. I am here to work. That is what sad people say. Before Claire could answer, the overhead speaker clicked. Trauma staff lead, administrative conference room. Immediate attendance. Trauma staff lead, administrative conference room. Nora frowned. That is Holt's voice. Claire looked toward the elevators. Hospital director Marion Holt never used the overhead system unless something expensive, political, or dangerous had happened. Sometimes all three. The administrative conference room sat behind frosted glass on the edge of the emergency department, close enough to smell disinfectant, far enough to pretend the hospital was orderly. By the time Claire entered, Dr. Kane was already there, arms folded, gown gone, fresh sleeves rolled to his elbows.
Marion Hall stood at the head of the table with a tablet in one hand and a security badge clipped crookedly to her blazer. Marion Hall had the smile of a woman who spent her career calming donors, lawyers, and government officials while never believing any of them deserved calm. Tonight, she was not smiling. Two men in dark suits stood near the wall, not hospital security. Claire noticed their shoes first, wet from outside, but not salted at the edges. They had come through a private entrance. One had a small coil at his ear. The other kept his right thumb near the button of his jacket, armed. Trained enough to hide it from civilians, not trained enough to hide it from her. Marion cleared her throat. At 1100 hours tonight, St. Meridian will receive a protected patient under federal security protocol. This is not for discussion outside this room. Kane looked annoyed. We are already overloaded. I am aware. We are not a military hospital. No, Marion said. But we are the merest level 1 trauma center with the cardiac imaging capacity they require. And we have a secure wing that can be locked down in under 7 minutes. Claire's eyes shifted to the suited men. One watched Kane. The other watched her. Marion tapped her tablet. The patient is Admiral Warren Kincaid. The name landed without sound, but Claire felt it strike the room. Kane straightened. Nora, standing near the door, inhaled softly. Everyone in medicine near a military city knew that name. Warren Kincaid was not just an admiral. He was the admiral people referenced when they wanted a sentence to feel classified. Former commander of Joint Special Operations Oversight, Pentagon advisor, Senate witness, Cold War mind in a modern uniform. He had sent teams into places the public never learned existed. Claire did not move. Inside her chest, something old opened one eye. Marion continued. He collapsed during a closed defense review at Buckley this afternoon. Suspected cardiac event. He is conscious, stable, and unhappy. That is all we need to know. Kane glanced at the agents. Secret Service. One of the men spoke. Federal Protective Detail assigned through naval security channels. That answered nothing, which meant it answered enough. Marion looked back down at her tablet. Phones will be restricted on the VIP floor. No photography. No chart access without authorization.
No staff gossip. No exceptions. Kane sighed. Who is attending? You are? Of course I am. Primary nursing care will be Claire Bennett. The room narrowed for Claire. Sound dropped away. Not gone, distant. Kane looked at her with the first hint of satisfaction he had shown all night. Interesting. Claire kept her voice even. I am not appropriate for VIP recovery. Marion looked surprised. You are the most appropriate nurse I have. I work trauma. You work pressure. I am not trained for political patients. One of the agents finally looked fully at her. Marion's expression tightened. This is not a request. Claire felt every exit in the room. Main door behind Nora. Side office to the left. Service hallway past the glass partition. Window locked. 2 agents. Kane in the way, but not a threat. Marion unaware of the shape of the conversation she had just forced. I have active patients, Claire said. They will be reassigned. Kane needs me in trauma. Kane smiled thinly. I will survive. Claire met Marion's eyes. Director Holt. For a brief second, there was something in Claire's voice that did not belong to an employee speaking to an administrator. Marion heard it. Her shoulders stiffened. Claire softened her tone at once. I'm asking you to reconsider. Marion lowered the jablet. The federal detail reviewed our staff files. They requested someone discreet, calm under pressure, no local family complications, no disciplinary history, no social media footprint. Your name came up before mine did. Claire looked at the agents. The one with the earpiece said, you have a clean record. Claire almost laughed. Clean? That was one word for a grave with a wrong body in it. Marion continued. Dr. Kane also mentioned your performance in Trauma 3. Claire turned her eyes to Kane. His smile faded. I said you were efficient, he said. Thank you. It was not a compliment. It worked as one.
Nora made a small choking sound near the door and covered it with a cough. Marion rubbed the bridge of her nose. Enough. Bennett, report to VIP and take in 5 minutes. Kane, review Concade's incoming records. Delgado, restructured trauma coverage until midnight. Claire nodded because refusal had become attention, and attention was risk. The meeting broke apart around her. Kane moved toward the secured file terminal. Nora followed another nurse out.
Marion began speaking with the agents in low tones. Claire stayed still for 1 second longer than natural. Warren Kincaid, the man whose signature sat beneath the extraction order for Operation Silent Harbor, the man whose name appeared on the file that declared Lieutenant Maya Rohr killed in action, remains unrecoverable, identity confirmed by dental comparison. The man who, depending on which truth survived, had either sent her team into a trap or been used to close the door after someone else built it. A paper cup cracked in her hand. Claire looked down. Coffee bled over her fingers and dripped onto the floor. No one had seen. She threw the cup away and walked out. 5 minutes was too long. 5 minutes gave a mind room to remember. She went to the locker room instead of the VIP elevator. The room was empty except for the hum of vents and the dull thump of a dryer behind the linen wall. Claire opened locker 28. Inside hung an extra scrub top, a gray hoodie, a pair of running shoes, and nothing personal. At the back, hidden behind a taped panel, sat a small waterproof pouch. She did not open it. She pressed 2 fingers against it only once. Then she changed her undershirt. The fresh one was black, tighter at the shoulder, harder to tear. She checked the sleeve cuff, pulled it low, bent her arm, checked again. Her fingers brushed the ridge beneath her collarbone. The old scar answered with a dull ache, as if it knew the Admiral had entered the building. Claire shot the locker. In the mirror above the bench, she saw a nurse preparing for a difficult assignment. Not a fugitive, not a medic from Raven Team 7. Not the woman who had once held a dying radio operator's jaw together while calling coordinates into a burning sky. A nurse, a quiet one. She stepped out into the corridor. The hospital had changed while she was gone. Federal security moved through the building with polite aggression. Elevators were being keyed offline. A maintenance worker argued with an agent near a stairwell and lost. A portable privacy screen rolled past with 2 armed men beside it. Staff lowered their voices, as if volume alone could trigger consequences. Claire passed the nurse's station. Nora looked up. You good? Yes. You do not look good. I rarely do. Fair. Nora leaned closer. Something feels off. Claire stopped. Nora was not tactical, not military, but she had worked emergency rooms for 19 years. That gave a person a different kind of radar. What do you mean? Claire asked. Nora glanced toward the elevators. Too many suits, too little information, and Director Hall is chewing mints. She only does that when lawyers scare her. Claire looked across the ER. One of the federal agents stood near the ambulance doors, speaking into his cuff. Another watched the hallway cameras. A third checked staff badges against a tablet. Stay away from the VIP floor, Claire said. Nora blinked. That sounded less like advice and more like an order. It is advice, Claire softened her voice. Please. Nora studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded. Fine. But if some admiral throws a bedpan at you, I want details. He will not. You know him. Number. The lie came too fast. Nora heard that too, but she let it pass. Claire walked toward the secure elevator. Each step felt measured against an old map she had tried to burn out of herself. Kincaid's name opened doors in her memory that had stayed sealed for 3 years. A desert landing zone at dawn, a cave mouth black against gray rock, Ethan Vale shouting over rotor wash, the smell of heated metal, her own blood inside her glove. The elevator doors opened. A federal agent stood inside. Badge. Claire handed it over. He scanned it. Then her face. Then the badge again. Claire Bennett. Yes. Any weapons? Claire looked at him. He stared back, bored and official. No, she said. That was mostly true. He handed the badge back.
The elevator rose. Floor numbers glowed one at a time. 3, 4, E6. The sounds of the ER dropped beneath her. No more screaming monitors. No more families crying into paper masks. No more Kincaid performing authority like surgery. Only the elevator hum. Only her pulse. Only the ghost beside her that never learned how to stay buried. The doors opened onto the VIP wing. It looked less like a hospital and more like a controlled accident. Curtains drawn, cameras angled, hallway cleared of extra equipment. 2 agents outside the last room on the right. A crash cart parked too close to the wall. Fresh flowers removed. Visitor chairs gone. No comfort, all control. Claire noticed the small things. The west stairwell had a new electronic lock. The fire extinguisher case was sealed but not zip-tied. The ceiling panel above the nurse's alcove sat slightly crooked. The service elevator light blinked out of rhythm, likely placed on manual override. She hated that she noticed. One agent opened the suite door. "Primary nurse," he announced. Claire entered. Admiral Warren Kincaid sat upright in bed beneath a pale blue blanket, an IV in his left arm, and a cardiac monitor across his chest. His hair was iron gray, cut close. His face was drawn from illness, but the weakness had not reached his eyes. Those eyes lifted from the classified folder in his lap. They were the color of winter water. Claire felt them move over her, quick and exact, not like a patient, like command. She stepped to the bedside and placed the medication tray down with quiet care. "Good evening, Admiral. I'm Claire Bennett. I'll be your nurse tonight." Kincaid looked at the tray, then at her shoes, then at the door behind her. "You close doors softly," he said. Claire checked his IV line. "Hospital floors carry sound, so do guilty people." Her fingers did not pause. "Then I'll try to walk like an innocent one, sir." For the first time, the corner of Kincaid's mouth shifted. Not a smile, recognition of resistance. Claire reached for the blood pressure cuff. "Your chart says you collapsed during a briefing. My chart says what people were allowed to write. That happens often in hospitals. It happens more often in government." She wrapped the cuff around his arm. His gaze stayed on her hands. "Have we met before, Nurse Bennett?" Claire secured the cuff, smooth and professional. "No, Admiral." The machine began to inflate. Kincaid watched her face. "I remember quiet people." Claire looked at the numbers instead of his eyes. "Then you must remember many hospitals." "No," he said. "I remember battlefields." The cuff hissed. The numbers appeared. 132 over 86. Claire removed the cuff. "Blood pressure is stable." Kincaid leaned back against the pillow, still watching her. "You do not walk like a civilian." Claire folded the cuff with precise edges. The sleeve on her right arm stayed pulled low. "Maybe civilians walk differently in Denver." "No," Kincaid said. "They do not." Claire picked up the blood draw kit. "Small pinch, sir." His eyes narrowed as she reached for his arm. Outside the room, someone laughed softly in the hallway, nervous and young. Inside, the Admiral offered his vein. Claire took the vein before the Admiral finished making a fist. The needle slid in cleanly. No search, no adjustment, no second attempt. Dark blood filled the tube in a smooth line. And Admiral Warren Kincaid watched the way she held the vial between two fingers, the way her thumb stayed free, the way her body remained angled toward the door even while her eyes stayed on his arm. Most nurses turn their backs at least once. Claire did not. She changed the first vial for the second without looking down. Kincaid's voice came low. "You have done that in moving vehicles." Claire pressed the next vial into place. "I have drawn blood in crowded hallways." "That is not what I said." "No, sir, but it is what you answered." She pulled the needle, covered the puncture with gauze, and taped it down with a neat strip. Her hands were gentle, almost careful enough to pass for ordinary, but the speed betrayed her. It had the rhythm of muscle memory, not training, refreshed by hospital seminars. Kincaid flexed his fingers. "You are very good at not reacting." Claire placed the vials into the tray. "People prefer calm nurses. People prefer honest ones. Not always." That made him look at her more closely. She kept her face still, but she felt the old warning rise through her spine. The Admiral was tired. He was poisoned, though he did not know it yet. He was attached to a heart monitor, locked inside a civilian hospital room, and still he could cut through a person's cover with nothing but silence. Men like Kincaid had built careers by noticing what people tried to hide.
Claire turned toward the medication scanner. Kincaid said, "Your file says Oregon." She stopped only long enough to scan the first label. "Yes. Portland trauma rotation 3 years. Yes. Before that, Seattle. Before that," she looked back at him, "nursing school." "Which one?" "Evergreen Pacific." His eyes did not move, but something behind them sharpened. "Small program, good instructors, closed in 2016. Claire turned back to the scanner. The nursing program was absorbed before the campus closure. The lie had weight. She had shaped it carefully. She had rehearsed it until the edges fit. Names, dates, rental records, tax forms, a fake clinical supervisor in a database no one checked twice. Kincaid heard none of that. He heard the half-second of preparation before she answered. "Interesting," he said. Claire placed 2 pills into a papal cup and set water beside them. "Your cardiologist wants these taken with food. Since you refused dinner crackers, we'll have to count." "I did not refuse dinner. I questioned its legal definition. There was chicken. There was beige matter beside green matter. Hospital cuisine is a national security issue." That almost earned another shift at the corner of his mouth. Then the room settled again.
Outside the door, an agent murmured into a radio. Farther away, wheels clicked over tile. The storm pressed faintly against the windows, soft and constant. Denver glittered below them through a narrow gap in the curtains. All frozen streets and red brake lights. Ordinary people moving through an ordinary night. Claire watched Kincaid swallow the pills. His hand trembled once as he lifted the water. Not age, not fear, a rhythm problem. Small, easy to miss. Her eyes went to the monitor. Kincaid caught it. Something wrong. Your heart rate is elevated. I'm in a hospital. That explains irritation, not rhythm. Do you always talk to admirals this way? I rarely meet admirals. But when you do, I chart accurately. He studied her again. You really do not like rank. I respect competence. That was not an answer. It was the polite version. Kincaid leaned back against the pillow, and the movement cost him more than he wanted to show. His skin had a gray undertone beneath the hospital light. A faint sheen of sweat lined his forehead. The chart called it stress response after collapse. Claire did not believe the chart. Too many signs pointed in different directions. Pulse irregularity. Mild nausea. He kept swallowing down.
Visual focus drifting, then snapping back. Potassium low, but not dangerously low. Dachshund screen negative, yet the pattern felt like something that had learned how to wear Dachshund's clothes. Claire checked his IV pump. What did they give you before transport? Kincaid closed the classified folder on his lap. You read the chart. I asked what they gave you. Standard stabilization names. Am I being interviewed? Yes. He held her gaze. You are bold for someone pretending to be forgettable. The sentence entered the room like a blade. Claire's fingers rested on the IV line. She had heard variations of it before. From men searching checkpoints, from doctors in border clinics, from a customs officer in Rotterdam who had looked too long at a passport that did not belong to her. The trick was not to deny too hard. Innocent people disliked being suspected. Trained people disliked being read. She chose irritation. Admiral, I'm trying to keep your heart from doing something dramatic before morning. If that interferes with your hobby of interrogating hospital staff, I apologize. Kincaid's eyes narrowed, and for the first time there was something almost approving in his expression. You have teeth. Only during night shift. A knock came at the door. Claire turned before the sound finished. Kincaid noticed that too. The door opened without waiting for permission, and Dr. Tyler Brooks stepped in, pushing a portable cardiac ultrasound machine with one hand and balancing a metal tray in the other. He looked young enough to still believe exhaustion was a personality flaw. His hair stuck up in one place. His glasses had fogged from the hall. Sorry, Tyler said quickly. Dr. Kane asked me to bring this up. Echo team is delayed, but he wanted imaging ready if the Admiral had another episode. Claire's attention moved across him in pieces. Sweat at the temple. Left hand too tight on the tray. Right shoe untied. Tray overloaded. 3 glass vials near the edge. Loose cable hanging from the ultrasound cart. Raised threshold under the door. Tyler smiled nervously at Kincaid. Good evening, Admiral. I'm Dr. Brooks. Resident Brooks. Dr. Brooks, either is fine. Kincaid stared at him, comforting. Tyler gave a short laugh that sounded like a cough. He tried to step over the threshold while turning the machine sideways. Claire moved. Stop. Tyler's shoe caught.
His body pitched forward. The tray lifted from his hand as if the room had exhaled beneath it. Glass rose into the air. For everyone else, it happened fast. For Claire, it opened into separate frames. The ultrasound machine tilted. The metal tray spun. One vial shattered against the bed rail. Another burst in the air. The largest shard flew toward Kincaid's face, turning slowly bright under the overhead light. The federal agents outside had not yet reacted. Kincaid had not yet raised his hand. Tyler's mouth had opened, but no sound had reached it. Claire crossed the space between one heartbeat and the next. She hit the bed with her left knee, drove her shoulder across Kincaid's chest, and shoved him down behind her body. The glass struck her upper arm and shoulder. The metal tray slammed hard against her collarbone. Pain flashed white-hot and old. Kincaid grunted under her weight. Tyler crashed to the floor. The ultrasound machine tipped into the IV pole, sending the pump shrieking. The door burst open. 2 agents came in with pistols drawn. Down one shouted. Claire was already up. Her right hand closed around the fallen tray. Her left hand hovered near a broken glass shard before she forced it open and empty. The agents aimed at Tyler. Tyler lay half-curled on the floor, hands over his head, shaking. I'm sorry, he gasped. I'm sorry. I tripped. I swear I tripped. Kincaid sat up slowly. Stand down, sir, one agent said. Stand down. The agents hesitated. Kincaid's voice turned to iron. It was an accident. One agent holstered his weapon with reluctance. The other moved to Tyler and pulled him up by the back of his coat. Out, the agent said. Tyler looked at Claire. His face was white, eyes wet with panic. I didn't mean to. Claire looked at him for one sharp second. Fear. Real fear. Not the trained kind. Not a mask.
Something had already been eating that boy alive before he entered the room. The agents dragged him into the hall. The door remained open. Kincaid shifted on the bed. Nurse Bennett. Claire turned. Blood ran warm down her arm. Her sleeve had torn from the collarbone to the bicep. The black undershirt beneath it had ripped too, exposing skin she had kept hidden for 3 years. She looked down. The room lost all sound. The scar was there, pale and brutal under the hospital light. A crescent-shaped burn twisted across the top of her shoulder, where the thermal charge had kissed bone.
Beneath it ran a straight surgical line, thick at one end, uneven at the other. A field repair done by dying hands with no anesthesia, no clean clamps. Just below her collarbone sat the faded tattoo she had once planned to remove and never could. ONEG-GR7M-D41. Kincaid saw it. Everything in his face changed. The Admiral, who had questioned her, tested himself against her lies, vanished for one unguarded second. In his place sat an older man, staring at a grave that had opened. His eyes moved from the tattoo to the scar, then to her face. Claire reached for the torn fabric. Too late. Kincaid caught her wrist. His grip was weak from illness, but still commanding. "Clear the room," he said. The remaining agent looked from him to Claire. "Sir." Kincaid did not look away from her. "Close the door. No one enters unless I give the order." "Admiral." "Protocol?" "Protocol can bleed in the hallway. Move." The agent stepped out and shut the door. The click of the latch sounded louder than the alarms. Claire pulled once against Kincaid's grip. He did not release her. "That tattoo," he said. "You are hurting me." "No, I am not. You are making a mistake." "I have made many." His voice dropped. "This is not one of them." Claire's pulse hammered against his fingers. Kincaid leaned forward, eyes locked on the exposed mark. "Raven, Team 7, medical priority code, O negative, medic identifier 41. Claire's voice cooled. "I was in an accident." "You were in a cave." She stopped breathing. Kincaid pointed his finger, hovering near the surgical line, without touching her. That repair was done below the clavicle. Fast, dirty. Whoever stitched it ran out of clamps and crossed the line twice to hold pressure. I remember that detail, because the after-action report said no one should have survived it. Claire tried to pull away again. This time he let her go. She stepped back, pressing torn fabric over the scar. "You are confused, Admiral." Kincaid's eyes lifted to hers. Lieutenant Maya Rohr was a combat medic attached to Raven Team 7, Nuristan Province, Operation Silent Harbor. 3 years ago, thermal injury to right shoulder, severe vascular trauma, reported dead after helicopter crash during extraction. Claire said nothing.
The room watched her breathe. Kincaid's voice became quieter. That made it worse. "I signed the condolence letter." A muscle tightened in her jaw. "I do not know that name." "Yes, you do." "Number." "I read your death file." She looked at him then, and the nurse was gone from her eyes. Only for a second, but Kincaid saw it. The temperature of the room changed. "Death files are convenient," she said. Kincaid stared at her. Before he could answer, the door opened again. This time, no resident stumbled through. Commander Ethan Vale stepped into the room, with one hand inside his suit jacket and the other pushing the door wide. He was built like a man the world had tried to break and failed to finish. Broad shoulders, close-cut brown hair, a scar at the left side of his jaw. Blue eyes trained to see threats before faces. "Kincaid." "I heard impact. Agent said there was glass. Are you?" He stopped. His eyes found the blood first, then the torn sleeve, then the tattoo. The room went still around him. Claire felt the old name rise before he spoke it. His face drained of color so completely it seemed the light had changed. The hand inside his jacket fell away from his weapon. His mouth opened, but no sound came. Kincaid looked at him. "Commander." Ethan took one step forward, then another. He looked at Claire's face the way a starving man might look at water and fear it was a hallucination. His voice came broken. "Maya." Claire closed her eyes. That one word struck deeper than the glass. When she opened them, Ethan was closer, too close. His hands shook at her sides, and that frightened her more than his weapon ever could have. Ethan Vale did not shake, not when mortars landed inside a wire fence, not when blood filled his boots, not when he called danger close with half his team pinned under rock, but he shook now. "No," he whispered. Claire's throat tightened. "Ethan." He flinched as if she had touched a wound. "Number." He shook his head once hard. "No, I carried you." Kincaid looked between them, silent now. Ethan's voice rose, raw and disbelieving. "I carried what was left of you out of the hangar."
I stood in the rain at Arlington. I handed your mother the flag because your father could not stand up. Claire looked away. Ethan followed her movement like it hurt. Do not look away from me. She looked back. For 3 years she had rehearsed what she would say if this happened. Simple words, clean words, necessary words. None came. Ethan took another step. I watched that coffin go into the ground. You watched a coffin. His face changed. Anger entered fast because grief needed somewhere to stand. What does that mean? Claire pressed the torn fabric tighter against her shoulder, though it hid nothing now. It means they buried what I gave them. Ethan stared. Kaninkade's eyes sharpened. You switched remains. Claire did not answer him. Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. Who? A local interpreter, she said. He was already dead. Ethan looked sick. You let us bury him under your name. I let him leave that valley with a flag instead of being burned in a pit. The words hung between them. Ethan's fists curled. You let your mother bury a stranger. Claire's mask cracked, and beneath it, something exhausted and furious looked out. I let my mother live. Ethan stopped. Claire's breath came through her nose. Controlled, but barely. If I came home, they would have followed me. If I called you, they would have followed the call. If I walked into Arlington and told my mother I was alive, she would have been dead before sunrise. Who? Kaninkade's voice cut through the room. Claire turned to him. The Admiral had one hand braced against the bed rail. Body, pale and weakened. Eyes bright with command and dread. Who are they? Claire laughed once without warmth. You really do not know. Kaninkade's face hardened. I know the official report. The official report was a burial shroud. Silent Harbor was an insurgent ambush. No, Claire said. The word was quiet, but it hit the room like a shot. Ethan stared at her. His anger had not left, but now something else moved beneath it. Memory.
Doubt. The part of him that had survived by trusting details others missed. Claire stepped back from the bed. Blood slid down her arm and dripped from her elbow onto the floor. She did not seem to notice. Insurgents did not hit our aircraft. Kincaid's jaw tightened. Claire looked from him to Ethan. Raven 7 was not overrun. Ethan's voice was. Then what happened? Claire held his gaze. For a moment, the hospital walls seemed too thin to contain the mountains, the fire, the screaming metal, the 3 years of silence packed inside her chest. Then she said the truth that had kept her dead. We found something in that cave. We were never meant to survive. The words did not echo, but they seemed to remain in the room after Claire said them, hanging over the hospital bed, over the broken glass, over the blood drying on her sleeve. The heart monitor kept its steady rhythm beside Admiral Warren Kincaid, indifferent to classified wars and buried names. Commander Ethan Vale stared at her, as if he could force the past to rearrange itself by refusing to blink. What did we find? He asked. Claire looked at him. For 3 years she had imagined this question in 100 different voices. Angry, broken, suspicious, begging. From Ethan it sounded like a wound reopening. You remember the mission brief? She said. Old weapons cache. Ethan answered. Insurgent supply route. Sweep, document, destroy if necessary. Extract before sunrise. Kincaid's eyes sharpened. That was the intelligence package I approved. Claire turned to him. That was the story they gave you. The Admiral's jaw tightened. He did not like being told he had been handled. Men like Kincaid built their lives on seeing the board from above. Claire watched the insult land, watched him swallow it, because the fear beneath it was larger.
Ethan stepped closer. Maya, the name shook something loose in her face, but only for a second. She walked to the small sink near the medication cabinet, opened a drawer, and took out gauze. Her shoulder was still bleeding where the glass had cut through old scar tissue. She pressed the gauze over the wound, but her attention was somewhere else now, far from the VIP room, far from Denver snow and polished floors. The cave system sat above a dry riverbed, she said, north face of the ridge, too clean from the outside. No trash, no tire marks, no cook fires. That bothered me before we even entered. Ethan's eyes shifted, remembering to spite himself. Rojas said the same thing, he murmured. Claire nodded once. Rojas always noticed what men tried to hide under dust. The room changed around them, not physically. The same curtains, the same bed, the same red line of blood along her forearm. But in the silence between her words, the cave came back. Cold stone, low ceiling, headlamps sliding across walls blackened by old smoke. 7 operators moving without wasted sound. Ethan at point, one hand lifted, Maya behind him with her medical pack tight against her spine, rifle low, eyes moving over shadows and shapes. They had expected rusted rifles, cracked crates, mortar rounds stacked beside goat blankets. Instead, the first chamber held sealed containers with printed humanitarian markings, each one too new, too clean, too perfectly spaced. Ethan had lifted one lid with the tip of his knife. Inside lay American optics wrapped in foam, not old, not surplus, new enough to smell like factory oil. In the second chamber, they found launch tubes with cereal plates removed by acid. In the third, encrypted radios packed beside medical kits that had never seen a clinic. In the fourth, Maya found a black case hidden beneath bags of wheat. She remembered the sound of the latches opening, small metallic vinyl. Inside the case was a rugged drive, a ledger book, and bundles of bearer bonds sealed in plastic. At first, nobody spoke. Then, Rojas whispered, "This is not Taliban Christmas." Ethan ordered photographs. Maya crouched beside the ledger. The names were coded, but not well enough. Shipping routes, port references, banking locations, payment initials, dates tied to military movements. One page had a phrase written in block letters at the top. Silent Harbor. Claire returned to the hospital room through her own voice. "I copied what I could," she said. "Photographs, ledger pages, drive contents, not all of it. Enough." Kincaid gripped the bed rail. "Why was none of that in the field report?" "Because the report was written after they killed the people who would have filed it." Ethan looked away. His throat moved once. Claire watched him fight the memory that followed, because it followed her too. The radio call had come too fast. Extraction moved up. Immediate departure. No additional survey. No demolition. No secondary team. Ethan had argued. Command had cut him off. "Get your people out now." The voice over comms had not sounded panicked. That was what Maya remembered most. It had sounded prepared. Outside the cave, the wind carried dust across the ridge. Their Black Hawk came in low over the valley, rotors beating the air flat. It should have been relief. It should have been the sound of home pulling closer. Maya saw the glint first, high on the eastern shelf. Wrong angle, wrong timing. She shouted Ethan's name before the first rocket hit. The blast took the tail. The aircraft twisted in the air like a wounded animal. Men screamed through comms. The second strike came before the pilot could recover. The world broke into fire, rock, and metal. Claire's fingers tightened around the gauze at her shoulder. Ethan noticed. He always had. "You were hit before the crash," he said. "Yes, on the ramp." She nodded. "You pushed me down. You were standing in the open." His expression twisted. "You took the blast meant for me." Claire looked at the floor. "I took the blast that was there." "That is not the same thing." Kincaid's voice cut in, rougher now. "The official record said the helicopter was hit by local insurgents using captured ordnance." Claire looked back at him. "It was not captured." The Admiral went very still. "The men on that ridge moved in pairs," Claire said. "They used suppressed fire to shape us toward the aircraft. They let the bird come in before they fired. That was not a tribal ambush. That was containment." Kincaid's face lost color by degrees. Ethan whispered, "Contractors." Claire's eyes met his. "Former operators. Some American, some not. All paid well enough to die clean."
The heart monitor beside Kincaid ticked faster. Claire noticed. She always noticed. He did too. "I am fine," he said. "No," she replied, "but keep pretending if it helps." For a moment, almost absurdly, Ethan gave the smallest breath of a laugh. It vanished as quickly as it came. Kincaid leaned back, but his eyes stayed on Claire. "Continue," she did. Not because he ordered it, because silence had done enough damage. When the helicopter went down, I woke under a section of fuselage. My right arm would not move. My shoulder was open. I could smell myself burning. Ethan closed his eyes. Claire's voice stayed even, but the room felt colder with each word. I heard boots in the rock, not sandals, boots. One of them checked bodies. Anyone moving got around to the head. I saw one of them shoot Dempsey while he was trying to crawl. Ethan's eyes opened. Rage replaced grief, clean and immediate. Dempsey was alive. Claire nodded. Ethan looked like he might be sick. I reported him killed in the crash. "I know." I wrote his mother. "I know." Ethan turned away, one hand covering his mouth. Claire waited. That was the cruelty of truth. It did not heal when spoken. It only changed the shape of the wound. Kincaid's voice was quiet. "How did you survive the sweep?" I stopped breathing when they got close. That simple. Number. She looked at her own blood soaking the gauze. I was under a dead crew chief. His blood covered my face. Mine covered the rest. The contractor nearest me said I was gone. The memory sharpened. A boot beside her cheek. Heat from the wreckage. The smell of plastic melting. A voice through a mask. Confirm no survivors. Then another voice on the radio, calm and distant. Silent Harbor must stay closed. Claire swallowed. I waited until they left. Then I crawled. Nobody spoke. The hospital outside the room kept moving. A cart rolled somewhere in the hall. A nurse laughed faintly and stopped. Life going on beside a death that had taken 3 years to tell the truth. Ethan turned back slowly. "You should have come home." Claire's eyes flashed. "To who?" "To me."
They were listening for survivors. I would have protected you. "No," she said, and the word struck harder than shouting. "You would have tried. Then they would have killed you too." Ethan stepped toward her. "You do not know that. I watched them shoot wounded men to protect a secret. I knew enough." His anger faltered. Claire softened only slightly. "I made it to a triage tent before dawn. There was an interpreter there, Faird. He had worked with us twice. He was dead when I found him. No family nearby. No records that mattered to the men who wrote our endings." Kincaid understood before Ethan did. "You switched identifiers. Dental tags, fragmented tissue sample, burned uniform pieces." Ethan's face collapsed inward. "You planned your own funeral while bleeding out. I planned a chance. Same thing, apparently." The bitterness in his voice scraped across the room. Claire accepted it. "I stitched the artery with a field kit that had been stepped on. The clamps were gone. I used fishing line from Faird's pack and a bent needle from a veterinary pouch." Kincaid looked at the scar again. "The cross-stitch." "Yes. And then I walked until I could not. A smuggler found me. Thought I was worth money. He was wrong." Ethan looked at her hands. Claire saw what he was imagining and looked away. "I got across the border under a dead aid worker's papers, then Turkey, then Greece, then a cargo ship out of Piraeus. I worked clinics, sewed fishermen, cleaned infections, pulled bullets without asking who fired them. It took 11 months to get back to the States. And once you were here," Kincaid asked. Claire looked at him. "I followed the money." The Admiral's eyes hardened again, but now not at her. At whom? At first, contractors. Shell logistics companies, disappearing procurement lines, men who retired early and bought houses with cash under their wives' maiden names. Then the names got bigger. Kincaid's hand tightened on the rail. Claire stepped closer to his bed. "You were not on the first list." Ethan looked at her. "First list. The people who ordered the kill box. The people who cleaned records.
The people who moved weapons through aid channels. The people who got rich when Raven 7 stopped breathing." Kincaid said nothing. Claire watched him absorb the shape of it. "There is a group," she continued. "They call themselves nothing in writing, but one contractor used a phrase in a voice memo. Harbor Group, defense money, private military networks, logistics officers, 2 procurement lawyers, and someone inside Pentagon reigning authority." Kincaid's voice came low. "Names. I have some. Give them to me." Claire's expression went cold. "You still think this is a briefing?" The Admiral stared at her. She leaned closer. "This is not a briefing. This is the part where you realize your signature was used to murder my team." Kincaid did not flinch, but something in his eyes broke. "I signed an extraction order.
I know. I did not sign a kill order. I know that now. Ethan looked sharply at her. Claire did not look away from Kincaid. I came to St. Meridian because Denver gave me access. Military patients, contractor executives, federal records that passed through civilian billing systems when men pat careless. I watched admissions, lab panels, prescription histories, hidden names attached to very expensive bodies. Kincaid's breathing had grown shallower. Claire shifted from witness to clinician in an instant. She reached for his wrist. He tried to pull back. "Do not be stupid," she said. Ethan almost smiled again, but his eyes stayed wet. Claire checked the Admiral's pulse, then looked at the monitor. Irregular, more pronounced now. "When did the nausea start?" she asked. Kincaid frowned. "This afternoon. Visual halos." His silence answered. Metallic taste. He looked at her. Claire exhaled through her nose. Ethan stepped closer. "What is wrong with him?" Claire moved to the chart tablet at the foot of the bed, scrolling through lab values. Not a heart attack. Kincaid's face hardened. The base physician said. The base physician saw what he was supposed to see. She pointed to the screen. Potassium drift, rhythm disturbance, nausea, visual changes, weakness. But the standard screen was negative. For what? Ethan asked. Cardiac glycoside toxicity. Something made to look like digitalis poisoning, without triggering a standard hospital flag. Kincaid stared at her. Claire turned back. "You were poisoned." The room did not explode. It contracted. Ethan looked toward the door. His hand went inside his jacket.
Kincaid's voice remained controlled, but just barely. Who had access? Food, water, medication, pen, coffee, handshake if the compound was engineered well enough. You were in a closed defense review today, correct? Yes. About what? Kincaid's face changed. Claire saw it. Silent harbor funding, she said. He did not answer. You reopened the money trail. I found irregularities in old procurement accounts and someone found out. Kincaid looked toward the curtained window, not seeing Denver now. I thought I was auditing fraud. Claire shook her head. You touched a grave. Ethan moved to the door and listened. The hallway sounded ordinary. That made it worse. Kincaid turned back to Claire. If I was poisoned, why am I still alive? Because whoever dosed you wanted it to look natural. Too much, and every toxicologist in Colorado starts asking questions. Too little, and you wake up angry. I am angry. No, Claire said. You are late. The overhead lights flickered once, then again. Ethan drew his pistol. Claire's head turned toward the ceiling. The heart monitor gave a sharp tone as power dipped, recovered, then dipped again. Kincaid pushed himself upright. Hospital generator should catch instantly. It did, Claire said. The lights went out. For one breath, the room became pure dark. Then emergency lighting washed the walls in red. Outside the door, an agent spoke. Control status on power. Static answered. Claire moved before anyone told her to. She stripped the torn sleeve from her arm, wrapped fresh gauze around the bleeding cut, and pulled the medication cart sideways with one hand. Ethan watched her face. The nurse was gone. Maya Rohr stood in the red light. From the hallway came 3 soft coughs of suppressed gunfire. Not loud, not dramatic, just final. A body hit the floor outside the door. Then another.
Kincaid stared toward the sound. Ethan raised his weapon. Maya reached down and picked up the longest shard of broken glass from beneath the bed. She wrapped its base in gauze without looking away from the door. Her voice was calm enough to freeze blood. They found us. Maya said it without fear, and that was what made Ethan believe her before his own mind finished catching up. The red emergency light painted the VIP room in broken pulses. Every surface looked wet, even the walls. The heart monitor stuttered beside Admiral Kincaid, trying to keep its rhythm while the rest of the hospital lost its own. Outside the door, one of the federal agents gave a low sound that ended too soon. Then something heavy slid down the wall. Ethan raised his pistol toward the door. Both hands locked, shoulders square. His face had gone empty in the way Maya remembered from firefights. No panic, no question, only distance, angle, threat. Kincaid tried to swing his legs off the bed. Maya crossed to him and pushed him back behind the steel medical cart. Down, she said. I can stand. You can also die standing. Down. The Admiral looked ready to argue. Then he saw her eyes and obeyed. That was the difference between rank and survival. Rank spoke first, survival listened. Maya dragged the medication cart across the floor until it blocked Kincaid from the door line. Its wheels squealed softly under the alarm lights.
She ripped the IV line loose from the stand and taped it against his forearm so it would not catch if they had to move. Ethan never looked away from the entrance. How many? Maya listened. No shouting in the hall. No panicked staff. No stampede of hospital security. That meant professional violence, the kind that cuts sound before cutting throats. First pair outside, she said. Maybe 2 more holding the corridor. A cleanup team behind them. Kincaid's voice came from behind the cart. Federal agents were posted at both ends of this wing. Then they are dead, bypassed her part of it. Ethan glanced at her for half a second. She gave him no comfort. The lights flickered again. A low hum vibrated through the walls as the backup generator settled into its weaker rhythm. Somewhere beyond the room, a nurse screamed once and was silenced by distance, not by mercy. Maya moved fast. Not frantic fast. She pulled open drawers with one hand. Gauze, tape.
Saline, syringes, scissors. She took what mattered and left the rest. The long shard of glass was already wrapped in gauze in her right hand, its edge shining red under the emergency light. Ethan noticed, "You want my backup number?" "Sure. If I wanted a pistol, I would have taken yours before you offered." Despite the blood on his jaw from biting down through the power cut, Kincaid almost smiled. Ethan did not. He knew that tone. He had heard it in caves and alleys and rooms that smelled of copper and dust. Maya was not being brave. She was calculating how many people she could kill with a broken room. A soft metallic click sounded beyond the door. Ethan heard it too. He lowered his center of gravity. Breach. Maya looked at the bed, the glass, the fallen ultrasound machine, the dented metal tray, the loose power cable curled on the floor. She moved to the wall beside the door. Not in front of it, beside it. The blind spot. "Ethan," she said, "talk. Give them noise from the bed. 3 shots, then drop. Armor likely. Head too dark. Make them turn." Kincaid gripped the side of the cart with one hand. "And me. Breathe quietly." The door handle punched inward, not opened, punched. Metal and splintered wood burst into the room. A small black cylinder bounced across the floor, spinning toward the center. Ethan shouted, "Flash!" Maya was already moving. She kicked the cylinder under the overturned bedding near the foot of the bed and turned her face into her shoulder. The blast came white and violent. Sound vanished under a solid wall of pressure. The room flashed bright as lightning inside a skull. Kincaid grunted. The monitor screamed. Smoke rolled low across the floor. 2 men entered behind it. Black tactical gear, gas masks, suppressed rifles. No insignia, no hesitation. They looked first toward the bed, exactly as trained. Ethan fired. 3 rounds cracked through the room, loud in the enclosed space. The first attacker jerked as the shot struck armor. The second shifted toward Ethan's muzzle flash. Neither looked left. Maya came out of the red smoke. She hit the second attacker from the side, driving her shoulder into his ribs with all the force her wounded body had left. He tried to turn the rifle toward her, but she was already inside the weapon's length. The glass in her hand rose once and disappeared under the edge of his mask, where armor did not cover flash. His breath collapsed into a wet choke.
Maya caught his rifle as his hands failed. The first attacker tried to pivot. Ethan fired again, forcing him backward. The shots did not penetrate the chest plate, but pain and impact stole half a second. Maya used it. She swung the captured rifle low, smashing the stock into the side of his knee. He dropped hard. She stepped past the line of his barrel, drove her elbow into his mask, then fired once into the exposed seam below the jaw. The man fell across the broken door. The room went still, except for the alarm. 5 seconds, maybe less. Maya stood over the bodies, breathing through her nose. Blood ran from her shoulder again, warmer now, faster. She ignored it and checked the rifle. Ethan rose from behind the bed, pistol still up. His eyes moved over the 2 attackers, then to Maya. "Good to have you back, Doc." She pulled a spare magazine from the dead man's vest. "I'm not back." Her voice had no softness in it. "I'm just out of places to hide." Kincaid pushed himself higher behind the cart. His face was pale, sweat gathering along his temple. "Who are they?" Maya crouched beside the first attacker and tore open a pouch. Ammunition, flex cuffs, small jammer. No wallet, no tags, no phone. People who expect not to be identified. Ethan knelt by the second body and checked the equipment. High-grade kit, civilian purchase channels scrubbed. "These are not street shooters," Maya said. "They are a message with rifles." The hallway outside remained dim and red. Smoke drifted through the broken doorway. The 2 federal agents who had guarded the room lay on the floor, one near the wall, one halfway turned as if he had heard the shot before he felt it. Both gone. Kincaid saw them and shut his eyes for one breath. When he opened them, grief had been placed behind command. "We need comms." Maya held up the jammer. They thought of that. Hospital police, cut off or confused. Local police. By the time they arrive, someone in a uniform will tell them this is a federal training incident or an active shooter containment. Maybe both.
Ethan looked down the corridor. So we move. Maya nodded. Main elevator is a coffin. Public stairs are obvious. Roof is exposed. Service route to sub gives us the morgue loading dock. Conk and Kate stared at her. You know the morgue route. I work nights. That explains too much and not enough. Maya stepped over the first body and looked both ways down the hall. Stay close. No silhouettes. No talking unless needed.
Ethan gave a short nod. Old habits returned without ceremony. Kincaid tried to stand and nearly folded. Maya caught him under one arm. His pride stiffened before his legs did. I can walk. You can lean. I was running operations before you were born, and now you are poisoned in a gown. Ethan slid under Kincaid's other arm. She wins that one, sir. Kincaid gave him a hard look. Ethan did not apologize. They moved into the corridor. The VIP wing had become unfamiliar. The polished floor reflected red emergency lights in long, wet stripes. Room doors were closed. A supply cart had tipped near the nurse's alcove, spilling gloves and plastic tubing across the tile. Somewhere, a patient's call bell chimed again and again, unanswered. Maya led, with the captured rifle tucked tight to her shoulder. Every few steps, she paused, listened, moved. At the nurse's station, a woman crouched behind the desk, with both hands over her mouth. It was one of the float nurses, young, curly-haired, eyes wide with shock. Maya lowered the rifle just enough. Are you hit? The nurse shook her head. Anyone else here? The nurse pointed toward a patient room. Mr. Harrow, ventilator. Maya looked at the ceiling. Power unstable. If the backup feed failed, the ventilator would die with it. Ethan saw her decision forming. Maya, we are not leaving him. Kincaid's breathing was rough. We do not have time. Maya looked at him. Then spend less of it arguing. She moved into the patient room. Mr. Harrow was unconscious, then his paper mouth taped around a breathing tube. The ventilator still worked, but its battery light blinked amber. Maya scanned the setup, adjusted the manual bag connection, and placed it within the nurse's reach. She looked directly at the nurse. Listen to me. If this machine stops, squeeze this every 5 seconds. Not fast, not hard. Count out loud if you have to. Lock the door after we leave. Kill the lights. Do not open for anyone unless they say Bluebird. The nurse shook so badly she could barely nod. Say it. Bluebird. Good. Are you Khalees? Maya looked at the patient, then at the frightened woman beside him. Number. She stepped back into the hallway. Ethan looked at her with something unreadable.
What? Nothing. Then move. They reached the West Service corridor. The door to the stairwell should have opened with a staff badge. Maya pressed hers to the reader. Red light. Denied. She tried again. Denied. Ethan checked behind them. Override. Someone locked the wing from the security office. Kincaid leaned against the wall, lips tight with pain. Can you bypass it? Maya looked through the small glass pane in the door. Beyond it, the stairwell was dark, except for emergency strips along the steps. She raised the rifle and fired twice into the locking plate. The sound cracked down the corridor. Ethan grimaced. Subtle. Fast. She kicked the door open. The stairwell smelled of concrete dust and something electrical burning deep in the building. Their footsteps echoed downward. 1 flight. 2. Halfway to the 6th floor landing, Maya stopped and raised a fist. Ethan froze. Kincaid's breath rasped. Below them, boots moved upward. Not hospital staff. Too even. Too quiet. Above them, another door opened. More boots. Ethan whispered. Boxed. Maya looked at the stairwell. Concrete walls, metal railings, fire extinguisher case, emergency hose cabinet, loose sailing bag still hanging from the small emergency response station by the landing, probably left after a drill. She moved Kincaid into the inside corner. Sit. He lowered himself with controlled anger. Maya handed Ethan the captured rifle and took his pistol without asking. He did not resist. High side, she whispered. Short bursts. Keep them looking up. What are you doing? Making the stairs unpleasant. Maya opened the extinguisher case, pulled the cylinder free, and placed it on the landing. Then she took the saline bag, cut it open with the glass shard, and let the slick fluid spread down the steps below. Ethan watched the lower flight coming. A shadow rose beneath the landing. Maya pulled the pin from the extinguisher and sent a white cloud roaring down the stairwell.
The first attacker came through it blind, rifle up. His boot hit the wet step. His balance broke. Maya fired low. He fell backward into the man behind him. Ethan fired downward from above, controlled, measured, forcing the third man into cover behind the railing. From the upper landing, another attacker leaned into view. Kincaid saw him before Ethan did. The Admiral grabbed the fallen EAV pole he had been using as a cane and thrust it through the railing. The pole caught the attacker's legs as he came around the turn. The man stumbled. Ethan turned and fired once. The attacker vanished from sight. Kincaid's face had gone gray. Maya grabbed him before he tipped sideways. You good?
Number. Honest answer. Progress. The lower stairwell erupted with return fire. Concrete spat dust near Mia's cheek. She pulled Kincaid behind the landing wall while Ethan fired back. A round clipped the railing close enough to send sparks across the red light. Maya looked down through the smoke. The remaining attacker was trying to flank up the outer edge. She slid the pistol across the floor to Ethan, took the rifle back, and moved before either man could object. She descended 3 steps into the smoke, low and fast. The attacker saw movement and fired too high. Maya drove the rifle barrel into his weapon, forced it aside, and slammed her knee into his chest plate. Pain flashed through her shoulder, but she stayed inside his reach. He grabbed her torn sleeve. His glove closed over the scar. The world narrowed. For one instant she was back beneath burning wreckage with a boot beside her face. The attacker pulled. Maya let herself go with it, turned under his grip, and used the railing to break his balance. He hit the steps hard. She struck once with the rifle stock. His head snapped against concrete. He stopped moving. Ethan reached her 2 seconds later. You hit. Not new. That is not an answer. It is the only one you get. They stripped the downed attackers fast. One radio still worked inside a protected pouch, though the channel was encrypted. Ethan pressed it to his ear. Static. Then a voice. Alpha paired down. Bravo status. Maya went still. The voice continued. Calm and filtered. Primary target remains conceded. Secondary target confirmed. Raw is alive. Capture of clean. Terminative compromised. Ethan slowly lowered the radio. Kincaid looked at Maya. They know your name. Maya stared at the dark space below. They did not know until upstairs.
Ethan understood the scar. No, the reaction. Kincaid's mouth tightened. Someone saw the room. Maya looked toward the ceiling, toward the VIP wing, toward cameras that should have been secure. Or someone in this hospital told them. They continued down. By the 4th floor, Kincaid could barely hide the tremor in his legs. His skin had gone clammy. His heart rhythm had begun to skip more often, in each irregular beat dragging his breath with it. Maya cursed under her breath and steered them through a maintenance door into a dim service hallway. Ethan shut the door behind them. We need to stop, Number. He needs treatment. Kincaid tried to wave them off and nearly dropped. Maya caught him again. Stop helping me argue with myself, she said. They found a crash cart near a surgical prep area. The hallway smelled of iodine and cold air. Maya laid Kincaid against the wall and tore open drawers. Ethan stood guard at the corner, pistol in one hand, rifle slung across his chest. Kincaid watched her prepare medication with hands that had just killed men in a stairwell. You always switch that fast? He asked. Maya checked the vial label under red light. Between what? War and medicine. She pushed air from the syringe. They were never separate for me. Kincaid looked at her shoulder. That is a hard way to live. She cleaned the IV port. I was not living. The words came out before she could stop them. Ethan heard. He did not turn, but his shoulders changed. Maya injected the medication slowly, watching Kincaid's face, then the portable monitor she had clipped to his finger. Temporary support, she said, not a cure. Kincaid breathed through the discomfort. You have a cure. I need a real lab, a toxicologist I trust in 6 hours. No one is trying to murder us, so no. So no. Ethan looked back from the corner. Movement behind us. Maya packed 2 vials, tape, and syringes into her scrub pocket. Kincaid forced himself upright. They moved again. The corridor led toward the sub-base service elevators. Maya avoided them and took the maintenance stairs down 1 more level. The lower they went, the less the hospital sounded like a hospital. No families, no overhead announcements. Only pipes, generators, ventilation, and the distant animal groan of a building in crisis. At a security terminal near the laundry access hall, Maya stopped. The screen glowed under emergency power. Access logs. She touched the keyboard.
Ethan moved beside her. Now door locks changed too cleanly. She searched recent restricted access. The log opened. VIP West Stairwell. Access granted. Pharmacy Service Hall. Access granted. Sub-base Morgue Corridor. Access granted. Same badge. Dr. Tyler Brooks. Ethan swore softly. The resident. Kincaid leaned against the wall, breathing hard. The one who dropped the tray. Maya stared at the name. Tyler's panicked face returned to her. The shaking hands, the apology, the fear before the accident, not after it. No, she said. Ethan looked at her. His badge held in the doors. I know. Then he is involved. He is involved. That does not mean he is willing. Ethan's eyes hardened. You saw all that from his face. I saw a man who expected punishment before he made a mistake.
Kincaid looked down the hall, coerced or used. The lights flickered again. This time, somewhere above them, a deeper alarm began to sound. Fire doors groaned shut in distant corridors. The hospital was sealing itself in pieces. Ethan looked toward the morgue signs. "We are close," Maya nodded. The morgue corridor stretched ahead, narrow and cold, lit by emergency strips along the baseboards. Stainless steel doors waited at the far end. A loading dock exit sat beyond them, if no one had locked it down too. They moved into the cold. Halfway down the corridor, a figure stepped from behind a linen cart. Ethan raised his weapon. Hands. Dr. Tyler Brooks lifted both hands at once. His face was bruised. Blood ran from his nose onto his white coat. His glasses were gone. Something black and rectangular was taped to his chest over his heart. A phone. Its screen showed a live video feed of a woman and a little girl tied to chairs in a dark room. Tyler's mouth trembled. "I opened the doors," he whispered. "They have my family." Maya kept the rifle trained past him, not at him. "Who has them?" "I do not know. They called me by my daughter's name. They knew her school. They told me if I did not help, they would make me listen." Kincaid's face turned to stone. Ethan looked from Tyler to Maya. Tyler's eyes filled with tears. "The tray was not supposed to fall. I was just supposed to bring the machine. I swear, I tripped."
Maya believed him. That did not make him safe. A faint red dot appeared on Tyler's chest, then another. Maya saw them bloom across the phone screen, across the white coat, across the shaking hands. Down. She slammed into Tyler before the first shot hit. The corridor exploded around them. Glass burst from the narrow observation window behind Tyler Brooks. Bullets cracked through the cold air and tore into the linen cart where he had been standing half a second earlier. Maya hit him hard enough to drive the breath from his lungs, rolling him under the cover of a steel laundry bin. As rounds hammered the wall above them, Ethan fired back at once. 3 controlled shots. A pause. 2 more. The muzzle flash lit his face in red fragments, jaw tight, eyes flat. Every motion built from years of close rooms and bad odds. Kincaid dropped behind a concrete support pillar, one hand pressed to his chest, the other locked around the IV pole he had refused to let go of. He was pale as paper now. The poison was still working through him, dragging at the electrical rhythm of his heart, but his eyes stayed alert. Maya kept one hand over Tyler's mouth. "Do not move," she said. His whole body trembled beneath her. More rounds snapped through the corridor. One struck the floor close enough to spit tile dust against Mia's cheek. She did not flinch. She looked past Tyler's shoulder, tracking the angle of the shots. 2 shooters near the far service door, maybe 3, suppressing fire, not rushing. They wanted her pinned. That mattered. If they only wanted Kincaid dead, they would have flooded the corridor and accepted losses. If they wanted Tyler dead, the first shot would have been clean. The lasers on his chest had been pressure, a message, a way to freeze him in the open. They were hurting. Maya looked at the phone taped to Tyler's chest. On the screen, a woman sat tied to a chair, hair across her face, eyes swollen from crying. Beside her was a little girl in a yellow sweater, maybe 6 years old. The child had stopped crying. That was worse. She stared at something outside the frame with the empty stillness of a child who had learned too quickly that adults could not save her. Tyler tried to speak through Mia's hand. She leaned close. "Quiet," she whispered. "Blink if the feed is live." He blinked once. Maya looked at the top of the screen. Battery at 32%. Signal strong. No caller identification.
No visible background beyond concrete wall, overhead bulb. Plastic sheet hanging behind the chairs. Ethan shouted without looking back. "Maya, I know. They are holding the far door. I know. Any brilliant ideas?" She looked toward the morgue entrance 20 feet away. Stainless steel double doors. Push plate. No lock from the side. Beyond that, cold storage, prep room, body drawers, loading dock corridor, if the old layout had not changed. Cover corners, cold air, a place built for the dead. Useful. Maya pulled the tape from one side of the phone on Tyler's chest, slow enough not to tear the device free. Tyler shook his head wildly. "If they lose the feed, they kill them," he whispered. Maya met his eyes. "They will kill them when they are done with you." His face collapsed. "I'm sorry. Be sorry." Quietly. She slid the phone under his coat camera, still facing outward through a gap in the fabric, then pressed his hands over it. "Keep it pointed at your face. Look scared." "I am scared." "Then you are already acting perfectly." A round struck the edge of the laundry bin. Tyler gasped. Maya took the captured rifle from Ethan's spare sling and checked the magazine by feel. Half full. Not enough. "Enough?" She looked to Kincaid. "Can you move?" The Admiral's breathing came rough. "Define move. Fall forward when I tell you." "That I can do." Maya looked at Ethan. "Smoke." He glanced at the fire extinguisher mounted near the wall behind him. "Again. Again." He smiled without humor. "You always did like ugly tools. They are honest." Ethan fired 3 shots down the corridor, then pivoted, ripped the extinguisher from its case, and hurled it across the tile toward the far wall. Maya shot it before it stopped rolling.
White chemical fog erupted through the corridor. "Move!" She grabbed Tyler by the back of his coat and dragged him low. Kincaid pushed off the pillar and staggered into motion. Ethan backed toward them, firing into the fog by memory and sound. The attackers returned fire, but the white cloud broke their lasers into useless red lines. Bullets struck doors, piped ceiling panels. The hallway filled with dust, smoke, and the shriek of alarms. Maya hit the morgue doors with her shoulder. They burst inward. Cold air swallowed them. The room beyond was dim, lit by emergency strips along the floor and weak overhead bulbs that flickered as if they were afraid to stay awake.
Steel body drawers lined the left wall in long rows. Gurneys stood near the center, some empty, one covered by a white sheet. A prep counter ran along the right side, cluttered with sealed instruments, gloves, tubing, and chemical containers. It smelled of disinfectant, metal, and cold finality. Maya shoved Tyler behind a gurney. "Cue down." The Admiral dropped onto one knee beside a stainless steel table, jaw clenched against the pane. Ethan shut one of the morgue doors most of the way, then jammed the handle with the metal stool. Maya moved through the room like she had already lived inside it. She opened 2 body drawers halfway and left them jutting out as barriers. She kicked a rolling gurney across the center aisle, angled another toward the prep counter, and pulled a sheet down to block a sight line. Ethan watched her set the room. "Kill box." "No," she said. "Delay box." "That is less comforting." "It should be." Tyler curled on the floor, still holding the phone under his coat. "My family," he whispered. Maya knelt beside him. "What is your wife's name?" "Anna." "Your daughter?" "Lily." "Look at me, Tyler." He did. "You opened doors because they had Anna and Lily. That means they still need leverage. That means they are alive right now." He swallowed hard. "Right now is where we work." He nodded, though he looked like he might break apart. Kincaid leaned against the table, sweat sliding down his temple. "They knew he could access the wing. They knew the hospital system. They knew my transfer route." Ethan checked the door through a narrow gap. "Inside help, or government help," Kincaid said. Maya looked at the Admiral. There was no accusation in his voice now, only the bitter clarity of a man whose world had begun to turn its weapons toward him. The radio on Ethan's vest crackled. "Roar, we know you're in cold storage." Tyler made a small sound. Maya held out her hand. Ethan gave her the radio. She pressed the transmit button. "Then come get warm." A pause. The voice returned, filtered and calm. "You have something that does not belong to you." Maya stared at the morgue doors. Kincaid looked at her. Ethan did too. The voice continued.
"Give us the archive, and we let the doctor's family breathe." Tyler's eyes widened. Maya did not answer. "Lieutenant Rohr, you have spent 3 years thinking you were the hunter. You were a damaged courier with a heartbeat." Mia's hand tightened on the radio. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Archive. Not witness, not survivor. Archive. They knew about the data. Kincaid spoke quietly. "What archive?" Maya lowered the radio. For the first time since the lights went out, something like hesitation crossed her face. Ethan saw it, and the anger came back. "Maya." She turned away from him and walked to the prep counter. Her reflection moved across the steel surface, warped and pale under the bad light. Ethan stepped closer. "What did you take from that cave?" She looked at the instruments on the counter. Scalpel, forceps, suture kit, alcohol pads, sterile tray. "Maya." She unwrapped a scalpel. Kincaid pushed himself higher. "Lieutenant?" She glanced at him. "Do not pull rank while wearing a hospital gown." He looked like he might argue, then did not. Maya set the scalpel down and reached toward the old surgical scar below her collarbone. Ethan understood before she said it. His face changed. "Number. I had nowhere else. Number." She pressed 2 fingers beneath the edge of the thick scar tissue. There was a small, hardened ridge there, deeper than the line of the old repair, nearly invisible unless someone knew the map of her body. Kincaid stared. "You implanted it." Maya nodded. "In the field?" Ethan asked, voice rough. "After the crash? You were bleeding out?" "Yes." "And you cut yourself open again?" "I was already open." Ethan looked away as if the words had struck him. Maya picked up the scalpel. Kincaid's voice dropped. "What is on it?" "Photographs? Ledger scans? Partial drive copy? Audio from the crash site? Payment routes? Names. Enough to prove Silent Harbor was not an ambush. Enough to convict." Maya looked at him. "Enough to start killing the right couriers before they bury the wrong bodies." Kincaid absorbed that. Ethan stepped toward her. "Why did you not give it to me?" She looked at him then, and the coldness cracked. "For 3 years, every safe channel I checked had fingerprints from the same people who killed us. Military justice, contractor oversight, procurement review, federal liaison offices. Names changed, the doors led to the same house. You still could have come to me. They would have used you to get to it. You do not know that. I knew you would believe me." Ethan stopped. That answer hurt more than denial.
Maya's voice softened, but only at the edges. And if you believed me, you would act. You would call someone, track someone, threaten someone. That is who you are. Ethan swallowed, and they would have killed you for being loyal. The morgue door shuddered under a hard impact. The stool bent but held. Ethan turned back toward the entrance. Time. Maya pressed a folded pad against the ridge below her scar, then looked at Kincaid. You were right about one thing, Admiral. Only one. You need evidence, not a ghost story. She cut. The pain was clean and white, sharp enough to narrow the room to the length of her breath. She did not cry out. Her left hand clamped over the wound. Her right hand worked the forceps beneath the scar tissue, searching through a place that had once nearly killed her. Ethan watched, horrified and helpless. Maya led me. Number. You cannot see the angle. I can feel it. The door shuddered again. A suppressed burst punched through the metal near the handle. Tyler covered his head. Kincaid grabbed the IV pole and dragged himself behind an open drawer. Maya's fingers slipped with blood. Then the forceps touched something hard. She gripped, pulled. A small black capsule slid free, no bigger than the end of a thumb, wrapped in dark medical sealant and old tissue. For 1 second, nobody moved. There it was. 3 years of death carried under skin. Maya placed it into Kincaid's shaking hand. If I go down, you get this out. Kincaid closed his fingers around it. I will. She looked straight at him. No closed rooms, no quiet committee, no classified grave. The Admiral held her gaze.
Number. The door lock finally gave. The stool snapped sideways. Ethan opened fire before the first attacker crossed the threshold. The morgue became thunder in a steel box. 2 men entered low, rifles up. Ethan hit one in the shoulder, spinning him into a body drawer. Maya moved through the center aisle, rifle tight, firing once, shifting, firing again. Kincaid crawled behind the steel table, the capsule clenched in one fist. Tyler stayed flat behind the gurney, whispering his wife's name under his breath. A third attacker threw something small into the room. Maya saw it bounce beneath the prep counter. Not a flashbang, too small. Gas, hold breath. The canister hissed, releasing a pale vapor that crawled along the floor. Maya fired into the overhead bulb above the prep area. Sparks fell. The room dropped into deeper shadow. The attacker's night optics adjusted. That gave them advantage for half a second. Maya took it away. She grabbed a container of embalming fluid from the counter and hurled it across the floor. It burst at the feet of the lead attacker, slicking the tile. Ethan shot the far wall, shattering another chemical container. Strong fumes filled the air, mixing with the gas, burning eyes and lungs. The lead attacker slipped. Maya slammed into him from the side, drove him into an open body drawer, and shoved the drawer shut against his rifle arm. Bone cracked. He screamed for the first time. Ethan dropped the second attacker with 2 shots to the pelvis, then kicked his rifle away. The third pulled back into the corridor. Kincaid saw the movement through the gap beneath the table. Left door. Maya turned. Too late. The attacker fired. The round struck Ethan high in the side, just below the vest seam. He staggered but stayed upright. Maya's fence changed. She fired twice. The attacker dropped outside the doors. Ethan pressed a hand to his side and looked down at the blood. Not bad. Maya reached him. Liar. I learned from you. She pushed him against a drawer unit and tore open his jacket. The wound was ugly but not immediately fatal. Through and through. If luck had decided to visit late, bleeding hard but controllable. Maya pressed gauze into it. Ethan hissed through his teeth. That hurts. Good. Dead men do not complain. Kincaid crawled toward them, still clutching the capsule. Can he move? Ethan answered before Maya could. Maya tightened the dressing until he swore. Now he can. The radio crackled again. No calm voice this time. Static breathing. Then a different man. Team 2, status. Silence. Team 2, status. Maya picked up the radio from the floor and pressed transmit. Cold storage is full. She tossed it aside. Kincaid stared at the dead attackers. They will send more. Already did, Ethan said, jaw tight with pain. Maya looked at Tyler. The phone. He pulled it from under his coat. The feed was still live. Anna and Lily remained tied to their chairs, but something had changed in the background. A door opened behind the plastic sheet. A shadow moved. A man's voice came through the phone. Dr. Brooks, you have disappointed us. Tyler lurched toward the screen. No, please, I did what you said. Maya crouched in front of him. Keep him talking. I can't. You can. He'll kill them. He was going to kill them anyway. Keep him talking and look at the screen. Tyler forced his eyes to the phone. I opened the doors. I brought the machine. You said they would be safe. The voice answered. Safety is a flexible term. Maya studied the background. Concrete wall, old pipe, hanging plastic, one overhead bulb. Sound through the phone, faint but present. A low mechanical rumble. Then a horn. Distant, deep. A train. She looked at Ethan. He heard it too. Denver rail corridor. Industrial zone. Could be half the city.
Then Lily turned her head towards something off-screen. For one instant, the plastic sheet behind them lifted. Painted on the wall beyond it was a partial logo. Blue mountain shape, white letters. Maya knew it. Not from military records, from night shifts. A cold storage distribution company that delivered medical supplies to St. Meridian twice a week. Front Range Biomedical Logistics, warehouse district south of the hospital. Tyler was still begging. Maya grabbed the phone and held it close. Listen to me. The voice went quiet. Maya spoke in the tone she used when a man was bleeding and needed to decide whether to live. You have 10 minutes before this feed stops mattering. A pause. Lieutenant Rohr, you want the archive? I have it. Kincaid looked at her sharply. Maya did not look away from the screen. You release the woman and the child, and I walk it out. The voice gave a soft laugh. You have always overestimated your leverage. Maya said, I know exactly what leverage is.
She took the capsule from Kincaid's hand and held it close enough to the phone camera for the man to see the black sealant, the blood, the shape. 3 years under my skin. You think I did not make copies? The silence changed there. Not fear, calculation, Maya continued. You kill them, it uploads. You kill me, it uploads. You touch another civilian in this hospital, it uploads. Ethan stared at her. Kincaid understood the bluff and kept his face still. The voice returned, colder. You are lying. Maya smiled without warmth. You built a billion-dollar murder pipeline on the assumption that dead people do not plan ahead. That was your first mistake. The man said nothing. Maya pressed harder. Let them walk. The feed shifted. The shadow moved closer to Anna and Lily. Tyler began to sob. Maya's grip on the phone tightened. Then a new sound came through the speaker. Gunfire. Not from the hostage-taker, from farther away on the feed. The camera jolted. The man cursed. Anna screamed. Lily ducked her head. Maya froze. A second voice shouted, muffled but clear enough. Federal entry. Hands where I can see them. Kincaid looked at Ethan. Ethan looked back at Maya. Tyler grabbed the phone with both hands. Anna, Anna. The image shook violently, then fell sideways. The view showed concrete floor, a boot, the leg of a chair, Lily's yellow sweater. More shouting, then a woman's voice, firm and close. Child secure. Woman secure. Get medical in here. Tyler collapsed forward, pressing the phone to his forehead. Maya exhaled. Ethan stared at her. You called it in. Maya shook her head. Kincaid's eyes narrowed. I did. Maya looked at him. When? When you were cutting open your shoulder. He leaned back against the steel table, breathing hard. Emergency oversight channel. Old one. I did not know if anyone clean was still listening. Maya looked at him for a long second. Then she nodded once. Not forgiveness. Acknowledgement. The phone feed cut. Tyler stayed on the floor, crying without sound. The moment did not last. A heavy impact shook the far loading dock door. Maya turned. They are breaching from the dock. Ethan forced himself upright, one hand pressed to his bandage. How many bullets? Maya checked magazines. Not enough for a speech. Good. I hate speeches. Cade pushed himself to his feet, using the IV pole like a staff. Maya stared at him. You are not fighting. I am standing. That is already ambitious. The loading dock door groaned under another impact. Maya scanned the morgue. They could not hold it. Ethan wounded, Kincaid poisoned, Tyler useless as a fighter. Ammunition low, evidence exposed. The enemy knew exactly where they were. She looked to the rear service hall beyond the cold storage drawers. There is an old ambulance bay past the autopsy supply room. Ethan frowned. You sure? Number. That is comforting. I used it once when a drunk patient stole a wheelchair and tried to escape through pathology. Kincaid blinked. Did he make it? Number. Excellent precedent. Maya grabbed Tyler by the collar and pulled him up. Your family is being extracted. You want to live long enough to see them move. Tyler wiped his face and nodded. They ran, or what passed for running. Maya led through a narrow passage behind the cold drawers, then into an autopsy supply room stacked with sealed bags, box, gloves, absorbent pads, old equipment, and a smell of bleach so strong it cut through the chemical burn in her throat. Behind them, the loading dock door blew open. Boots hit the morgue floor. Ethan shut the supply room door and shoved a storage rack against it. The rack would not hold long. Maya found the rear exit half hidden behind boxes. The handle was chained. Of course it was. Ethan looked at her. No bullets. Maya grabbed bolt cutters from a wall mount. Who chains a fire route? Kincaid muttered. People who fail inspections creatively. The cutters bit through the chain on the second try. The door opened into a black service tunnel sloping upward. Cold air moved through it. Somewhere at the far end, snow blew under a steel exit door. They entered single file. The tunnel narrowed until Ethan had to trend sideways in places. Pipes ran overhead. Water dripped along the walls. The hospital seemed distant now, a monster roaring behind concrete. Kincaid stumbled. Maya caught him. He looked at her. I am slowing you down.
Yes, you could leave me. Yes, you will not number. Why? She stared at him for a beat. Because if you die, they get to write another clean report. Kincaid accepted that. Behind them, metal crashed. The rack had failed. Maya pushed the group faster. At the top of the tunnel, the steel exit door was frozen at the bottom. Ethan drove his shoulder into it and nearly fell from pain. Maya shoved him aside and kicked near the latch twice. The door burst open. Snow and sirens rushed in. They emerged into the rear ambulance bay, hidden from the main entrance by a line of parked service vehicles and a concrete wall. Police lights flashed beyond the hospital. Fire trucks blocked the front drive. News helicopters circled overhead, their searchlights cutting through the storm. The whole city had finally noticed the war inside St. Meridian. But Maya did not trust the attention. Attention could save you. It could also mark you. A hospital ambulance idled near the bay rear doors. Open, engine running, abandoned in the chaos. Its driver's side door hung ajar. Ethan looked at it. Maya looked at Tyler. "Can you drive?" Tyler stared at her. "An ambulance? You are a doctor. That does not mean I can drive an ambulance." "Tonight it does." A black SUV turned into the far service road, headlights off. Maya shoved him toward the driver's seat. "Learn fast." Kincaid climbed into the rear with a grunt. Ethan followed, nearly collapsing onto the bench. Maya shut the rear doors, then climbed in beside them as Tyler threw the vehicle into gear. The ambulance lurched forward. Tyler hit a trash bin, corrected too hard, clipped a snowbank, then found the road. "Sorry," he shouted from the front. "Drive less sorry," Maya called back. Ethan laughed once, then winced and pressed his side. Maya moved to him immediately. "Let me see." "I'm fine." "You are bleeding through the dressing." "I have done worse." "So have I." "That is not medical advice." She pulled the bandage back enough to check the wound, then reinforced it with fresh gauze from the ambulance cabinet. Her hands were quick, but gentler now. Ethan watched her face in the flashing red interior lights. "You were at Arlington?" Maya's hands paused. Kincaid looked up from where he sat, braced against the opposite bench, the black capsule in his palm. Ethan's voice was low. "You said earlier you let your mother live. You saw us there, didn't you?" Maya resumed taping the bandage.
Yes, when during the service Ethan swallowed. Where? Across the road. Gray coat, black hat near the oak tree, his eyes closed. I remember that woman. Maya's breath caught before she could hide it. "You looked right at me," she said. "I thought I was losing my mind." "You were not. No, I was losing you twice." The ambulance swayed hard as Tyler took a turn too fast. Kincaid grabbed the wall rail. Maya tightened the last strip of tape over Ethan's side. "I almost crossed the street." Ethan opened his eyes. She kept looking at the bandage. "Your hand was on my mother's shoulder. She was standing because you were holding her up." I took one step off the curb. "Why stop?" Maya finally looked at him. "Because a black sedan rolled past the cemetery gate for the third time. Same driver, same passenger. They were not there for grief." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I never saw them." "You were not supposed to, so you left." I stayed until they lowered the coffin. His face hardened with pain. And then I went back to being dead. For a while, only the siren filled the ambulance. Kincaid had found the switch and left it on, maybe thinking noise meant authority. Snow streaked across the windshield. Headlights flared behind them in the small rear window. Kincaid looked through it. 2 vehicles. Maya moved to the rear window. Black SUVs. No markings. Fast. Ethan reached for the rifle. Maya pushed it down. "You are not shooting through ambulance doors in downtown Denver. Unless they force it. They will force it. Then wait your turn." Kincaid opened a cabinet and found a rugged emergency tablet mounted near the defibrillator equipment. "Can this connect?" Maya looked at it. "Hospital network if we are in range. Cellular backup, maybe." "Why?" He held up the capsule. "Because we are done waiting for clean rooms." Maya stared at him. "Your oversight channel. Not enough. That sent a distress flag. This needs to go somewhere. No single office can bury it." Ethan frowned. "Where?" Kincaid wiped blood from the capsule sealant with gauze. "A dead man switch archive created after an intelligence abuse scandal 20 years ago. Forgotten by most, hated by everyone who remembers it." Uploading evidence there triggers mirror delivery to Inspectors General Select, federal judges, military legal review, and congressional security offices. Maya watched him closely. "Can Harbor Group stop it? If they control everyone?" "Yes." "Do they?" Kincaid looked at the SUVs behind them. "We are about to find out." Maya took the capsule from his hand and cracked the seal with the edge of a trauma shear. Inside was a protected microdrive, small, dark, and slick with old residue from the capsule lining. It looked too ordinary for what it had cost. Ethan stared at it. 3 years, he said. Maya inserted it into the tablet adapter. The screen flickered. Files appeared. Not names at first. Numbers, folders, timestamps.
Then an audio file auto-populated at the top. Silent Harbor crash site. Kincaid's face turned rigid. Maya's finger hovered above it. Ethan said, "Play it." She did. Static filled the ambulance speaker, then rotor noise. Distant fire. A man screaming. A voice through a filtered mask came next. "Confirm all Raven assets down." Another voice replied. "Visual on multiple bodies moving through now. Gunshot." A pause. Gunshot. Ethan looked like the sound had physically struck him. Then came the voice that had lived inside Maya's nightmares for 3 years. "Silent Harbor must stay closed. No survivors." Authorization. Blackwake. Kincaid went still. Not from shock, from recognition. Maya saw it. "You know that voice." The Admiral did not answer at first. The ambulance veered. Tyler shouted as a black SUV clipped the rear quarter panel. Maya grabbed the wall rail, then looked back at Kincaid. "You know it." Kincaid's eyes had gone colder than she had seen all night. Deputy Secretary Elaine Voss. Ethan stared. Defense Policy Voss. Yes. Maya felt the name settle into place like the final round in a chamber. Elaine Voss. Public servant, decorated strategist, smiling witness at budget hearings, champion of modernization programs and private sector military partnerships, a woman with access to the rooms where wars became line items. Kincaid said she was junior during Silent Harbor, ambitious, brilliant, untouchable, because everyone thought she was useful. Maya looked at the upload screen. Now she has a cabinet-level knife. Another impact rocked the ambulance.
Ethan grabbed the rifle. Maya did not stop him this time. The rear window shattered inward as a round punched through the glass. Cold air and siren noise flooded the cabin. Ethan fired back through the broken frame, not to hit, just to make the driver behind them flinch. The lead SUV swerved. Tyler screamed, "They are still coming." Maya moved to the front partition. "Keep straight, there is a red light, then make it optional." Tyler blasted through the intersection, siren screaming. Cars skidded on snow, horns blared. The ambulance fishtailed, then covered. The tablet chimed. Upload ready. Kincaid placed his thumb against the security prompt. The screen rejected him. Credentials expired. He stared at it. Damn it. Maya grabbed the tablet. "Why?" "My clearance was suspended when I collapsed. Automatic medical hold." Ethan coughed blood at the corner of his mouth. "Convenient." Kincaid's eyes flared. "Very." Maya searched the screen. The archive required 2 authentication points. Kincaid's command key was dead. The system requested active witness identity biometric override or emergency legal certification. None of them had time. Then a prompt appeared. Under archived file metadata. Original field author recognized. Maya stared. The field author was not Claire Bennett, not Lieutenant Maya Rohr. It was the identifier embedded in the cave file when she copied it. R7M41. The system was asking for the person who created the original evidence package. Ethan saw her face. "What?" Maya looked at the fingerprint panel on the tablet. "It wants the dead woman." Kincaid understood. "Your biometrics would have been archived under military medical credentials. Maya Rohr is legally dead, but the file knows who touched it first." Another round struck the ambulance. Tyler shouted, "Please do computer things faster." Maya placed her thumb on the scanner. Rejected. Too much blood. She wiped her thumb on her scrub pants and tried again. Rejected. Her hands were shaking now. Not from fear, from everything. Ethan reached across with his good hand and closed it around her wrist. "Breathe." She looked at him. For 1 second, there was no ambulance, no siren, no SUVs, no Voss, no archive. Only Ethan, in a blood-soaked suit, holding her wrist like she was not a ghost, like she was standing in front of him and he intended to keep her there. "You are not dead," he said. Maya pressed her thumb down again. The scanner glowed. Accepted. The upload began. 2%, 7, 12. Behind them, the lead SUV accelerated. Ethan raised the rifle, but the angle was bad. Maya grabbed an oxygen cylinder from its bracket. Kincaid saw what she intended. In an ambulance? Do not start caring about regulations now. She opened the rear door latch, holding the frame as wind and snow tore into the cabin. Ethan grabbed her belt. "Maya, I know." She rolled the cylinder out. It hit the road, bounced once, then vanished beneath the lead SUV. The driver swerved hard. The SUV clipped a parked delivery truck and spun across the intersection, smashing into a snowbank with a metallic scream. The second SUV came around it. Upload 29%. Tyler took another turn, this one tighter. The ambulance tilted, slammed down and barreled onto a service road running along the rail line. Industrial buildings rose around them. Dark warehouses, chain-link fences, sodium lights, snow drifting in dirty piles. Maya looked through the broken rear window. The second SUV was still there. Kincaid watched the upload. 41%. The tablet flickered. Signal weak. No, Maya said. Kincaid looked toward the front. We need higher ground or stronger network. Ethan pointed through the windshield. Ambulance entrance ramp ahead. Parking structure. Maya moved to Tyler. Take it. It says staff only. Tyler. He jerked the wheel. The ambulance climbed the spiral ramp of a hospital-adjacent parking structure. Tires screaming on wet concrete. The SUV followed. Upload 58%. The ambulance burst onto the top level beneath open sky. Snow slashed sideways across the roof. Downtown Denver glowed beyond the storm. Tyler braked near a row of parked cars. The ambulance skidded, struck a concrete barrier, and stopped. Silence hit for half a second. Then the SUV roared up the ramp. Maya grabbed the tablet from Kincaid and shoved it into Tyler's hands. Hold this. Do not drop it. Tyler nodded wildly. Ethan tried to stand. Maya pushed him back. Number. He glared at her. You are wounded. So are you. I can still lie better. That makes no sense. It will. She stepped out into the snow with the rifle low. The SUV stopped 30 yards away. 2 men got out first, then a woman, not Elaine Voss.
Younger, dark coat, tactical vest beneath it, hair pulled tight, no fear in the way she walked. Maya recognized her from one of the files. Harbor Group liaison, former intelligence contractor, name listed under 3 shell companies. Rachel Sloan. Sloan held a pistol down at her side. Maya, row, she called over the wind. You look better than your funeral photo. Maya stood beside the ambulance, blood soaking her sleeve, snow melting against her face. You look exactly like your invoices. Sloan smiled. Still funny. That did not come through in the report. Most of me did not. Sloan's eyes moved to the ambulance. Kincaid is finished. Vale is bleeding. Brooks is useless. Give me the archive. Maya shifted her grip on the rifle. Sloan raised her free hand. Careful. You kill me. Voss releases every sealed charge we built under your name. Contractor deaths, financial theft, assassinations. We made your revenge years very useful on paper. Maya felt Ethan behind her in the ambulance doorway. Sloan continued. You thought you were hunting us. We let you remove liabilities. Every dead man you left behind helped clean our structure. The words struck deep because part of her had feared it. Kincaid's voice came from inside the ambulance. She is stalling. Maya did not look away from Sloan. Upload 73%. Sloan smiled, thinned. You always were hard to kill. Not impossible. She lifted her pistol. A shot cracked across the parking deck. Sloan's weapon flew from her hand. Not Maya, not Ethan. Kincaid stood braced in the ambulance doorway with Ethan's pistol in both hands, arms shaking, face strained, eyes clear. Deputy Secretary Voss sends poor negotiators, he said. Sloan stared at him. Then all hell broke loose. The 2 men fired. Maya dropped behind a parked sedan and returned fire. Ethan, bleeding and pale, dragged himself to the opposite side of the ambulance and fired from the doorframe. Tyler curled over the tablet like his body could protect the upload. Kincaid dropped back inside, breathing hard. Bullets tore through parked cars. Glass shattered. Snow whipped through muzzle flashes. One of Sloan's men tried to flank left. Maya shot the ground near his feet, forcing him behind a concrete pillar, then moved low between cars. She was tired now. Not story tired, body tired, the kind that made fingers slower and pain louder. Her shoulder burned where she had cut out the capsule. Her right arm felt heavy. Her lungs still held chemical bite from the morgue, but the old training remained beneath fatigue like bedrock. Move, breathe, angle, do not waste. She reached the pillar before the flanking man expected her. He turned too late. She drove the rifle into his throat, stripped his weapon, and shoved him into the side of a car. He fell and stayed down. The second man saw her and swung his rifle. Ethan hit him first from the ambulance door. The man dropped. Sloan ran for the SUV. Maya followed. Ethan shouted her name, but she did not stop. Sloan reached the driver door. Maya slammed into her before she could climb in. Both women hit the side of the vehicle. Sloan was stronger than she looked, and fresh in a way Maya was not. She drove an elbow into Maya's wounded shoulder. White pain burst behind Mia's eyes. Sloan used it, twisting, grabbing for a knife at her belt. Maya caught her wrist. They struggled against the SUV, boots sliding in snow and broken glass. Sloan's face was inches from hers. You should have stayed dead. Maya breathed through the pain. I tried. She headbutted Sloan hard enough to split skin above her eyebrow. Sloan reeled. Maya hooked her arm, turned, and slammed her into the open driver door. The knife fell. Maya kicked it away. Sloan laughed through blood. You think an upload saves you? Maya pinned her against the SUV. Number sirens rose from below, real ones this time, not just noise. Multiple units, different pitches, converging. Maya looked toward the ambulance. Tyler held the tablet up with both hands.
Upload 96%. Sloane followed her gaze and smiled. Too slow. Maya heard the sound before she understood it. A small device inside Sloane's coat began to beep. Not a phone, not a tracker. Maya ripped the coat open. A compact transmitter wired to a dead switch in Sloane's left hand. Sloane's smile widened. Black Wake! Maya did not have time to disarm it. She grabbed Sloane by the vest and threw both of them away from the SUV. The vehicle exploded. Heat punched across the parking deck. The blast lifted Maya off the ground and slammed her against the side of a parked car. For a moment, the world became light and pressure and no sound. Then snow fell into her open eyes. She rolled onto her side, coughing. The SUV burned behind her, flames licking into the storm. Sloane lay several feet away, alive but broken, groaning against the concrete. Maya forced herself up. Her ears rang.
Her shoulders screamed. Blood ran down her arm again. She staggered toward the ambulance. Ethan met her halfway, limping, one hand pressed to his side. "You good?" She gave him a look. He nodded. "Right." Stupid question. They reached the rear doors together. Inside, Kincaid sat slumped against the bench, pistol in his lap, eyes on the tablet. Tyler looked up. "It went." Maya stared at him. "What?" His face trembled between terror and disbelief. "It finished, 100%. It says archive accepted." Kincaid closed his eyes. For the first time all night, the Admiral looked old. Not weak, old. A man carrying the sudden weight of everything he should have seen sooner. Maya climbed into the ambulance and took the tablet. The confirmation screen glowed in her hands. Archive accepted. Mirrored delivery complete. Emergency review initiated. She stared at the words until they blurred. Ethan sat beside her with a heavy breath. "It is out." Maya nodded, but the relief did not come clean. Nothing about truth came clean. It came bloody, late, and carrying names of people who would never hear it. Kincaid looked at her. "Lieutenant Rohr." She did not correct him. "I will testify." Maya looked up. "So will I," Ethan said. Tyler wiped his face. "I will too, if that matters." Maya looked at the young doctor who had opened doors for killers because someone had put his family on a screen. "It matters." Police vehicles poured onto the parking level. Doors opened. Officers shouted commands. Federal agents followed, some in tactical gear, some in plaincoats. Maya lifted her hands slowly, keeping them visible. Ethan did the same. Kincaid pushed himself upright, with stubborn dignity. One of the arriving agents stepped forward, weapon lowered, but ready. "Admiral Kincaid." Kincaid's voice came rough. "Secure the civilians. Get medical to Commander Vale. Detain the woman by the burning vehicle if she is still breathing. And if anyone tries to take that Pladlet without a court-logged evidence seal, shoot them in the knee." The agent blinked. Kincaid stared at him. That was not a metaphor. Maya almost smiled. Almost. Two paramedics reached Ethan and began working on his... He sat. Another medic moved toward her shoulder.
Maya stepped back by instinct. The medic froze. Ethan from the stretcher said softly, "Maya." She looked at him, then at the medic, then slowly allowed the woman to press gauze to the wound. It should have been nothing, a gloved hand, a bandage, help. But for 3 years, help had been the most dangerous shape in the world. Kincaid was loaded onto a stretcher, still arguing with everyone around him. Tyler was escorted toward a police vehicle while calling his wife on a borrowed phone, crying openly when she answered. Maya stood near the ambulance doors wrapped in a thermal blanket she did not remember accepting. Snow melted in her hair. The city flashed red and blue around her. A federal agent approached with careful steps. "Ma'am, I need your name." Maya looked at the badge in his hand, looked at his face, young, nervous, trying to do it right. For 3 years, the answer had been Claire Bennett. Safe name, quiet name, living name. Across the deck, Ethan watched her from the stretcher. Kincaid watched too. Maya looked back at the agent. "Lieutenant Maya Rohr." The agent stopped writing, his eyes lifted. She held his gaze. "United States Navy, declared killed in action 3 years ago." The agent swallowed. "Yes, ma'am." The words hit harder than she expected. Not because of rank, because he had accepted that she existed. A phone rang from inside the burned SUV wreckage. Everyone turned. The sound was faint but clear, coming from somewhere near the twisted frame. One of the bomb techs approached carefully, then retrieved a scorched secure phone with gloved hands. The screen was cracked but active. Incoming call. No name. Maya walked toward it before anyone stopped her. The bomb tech looked at Kincaid. Kincaid nodded once. Maya took the phone. She answered. For a moment there was only static. Then a woman's voice came through. Calm,
polished, and familiar from hearing news clips. And now the audio file from the dead. Lieutenant Rohr. Maya stood in the snow, blood on her shoulder, emergency lights across her face. Elaine Voss. A soft breath on the other end. I wondered if hearing my name would satisfy you. Number. I did not think so. Maya looked toward the tablet in the evidence bag. It is over. Voss gave a quiet laugh. No, Lieutenant. It is public. That is not the same thing. Maya said nothing. Voss continued. You have released enough to start a fire. Fire spread in directions no one controls.
Friends burn with enemies. Heroes become exhibits. Mothers learn what daughters did to stay dead. Ma's grip tightened. Voss had aimed well. You should run, Voss said. Ma looked at Ethan. He watched her, already knowing the shape of the voice on the other end. Then she looked at Kincaid, pale on the stretcher, still alive because she had refused to let another report close over him. Finally, she looked at the city. Denver shone below the parking deck, cold and bright under the storm. Hospitals, homes, rail lines, offices, where men and women would wake up to headlines and decide which truths they could survive believing. Maya brought the phone closer. I am done running. Voss was silent for one beat. Then she said, Black Wake is awake. The line went dead. Maya lowered the phone. Ethan called from the stretcher, voice strained but steady. What did she say? Maya looked at the burning SUV, the evidence bag, the federal agents, the hospital behind them, and the snow still falling over everything, like the sky was trying to cover the blood before morning. She is scared. Kincaid at her and gave a faint, grim smile. Ethan did too. Maya turned the phone over to the nearest agent. Then she walked back to the ambulance and sat on the edge of the open rear doors. For the first time since the power died, no one was shooting. No one was chasing. No one was asking her to disappear. A medic wrapped another bandage around her shoulder. This time Maya did not pull away. Ethan was rolled past her toward another ambulance. He reached out. She took his hand. Neither of them spoke. There were too many dead between them for easy words. Rojas, Dempsey, buried the crew. The men buried under clean flags and dirty lies. The mother who had cried over a stranger's coffin. The commander who had carried sand and thought it was her. Ethan squeezed her hand once. She squeezed back. Kincaid's stretcher followed, surrounded by agents and paramedics. As they loaded him in, he looked at Maya. You understand what happens when this breaks? Maya nodded. Yes. You will be hunted. I already was. This time they will not hide it. Maya looked toward the horizon, where the first faint line of morning pressed against the storm clouds. Neither will I. The ambulance doors closed around Kincaid. Ethan's ambulance pulled away first. Tyler was reunited with his family below the parking structure. Maya saw it from above through the swirl of lights. Anna Brooks ran to him with Lily in her arms. Tyler fell to his knees before they reached him. He held them both as if his bones had been removed and replaced with gratitude. Maya watched until the family disappeared behind a police cordon. Then she turned back towards St. Meridian Medical Center. The hospital tower stood under the storm windows, glowing in broken patterns, wounded but alive. Somewhere inside, Nora Delgado was probably still keeping patients breathing. Mr. Harrow's ventilator was probably still running. Nurses were still squeezing bags, pushing meds, holding hands, making life continue inside rooms where violence had tried to become the loudest thing. Maya pulled the thermal blanket tighter around her shoulders. A young agent approached again. Lieutenant Rohr, we need to transport you for treatment and debrief. She looked at him. Treatment first. He hesitated, surprised. Maya looked down at her blood-soaked sleeve. I am trying something new. The agent nodded. Yes, ma'am. She let him lead her toward the waiting ambulance. At the rear door she stopped and looked once more at the snow falling over Denver. For 3 years Claire Bennett had survived by being forgettable. Quiet nurse, no family, no past, no scars anyone could see. But Claire Bennett was already fading, not because she was false, and not because she had failed. She had kept Maya alive when the world wanted a corpse. She had worked night shifts, saved strangers, learned exits, built silence into armor. Maya owed her life to that ghost too. She climbed into the ambulance. As the doors closed, the first news helicopter turned its camera toward the hospital roof. Somewhere in the city, phones would start buzzing, names would surface, files would open. Powerful people would deny knowing the dead until the dead began speaking in their own recorded voices. Inside the ambulance, Maya leaned back while a medic checked her pulse. The woman frowned at the readings. You need surgery. Mia looked at the ceiling. I have heard that before. The medic did not smile. You also need rest.
Maya closed her eyes. Outside, sirens carried them into the morning. For the first time in 3 years, she did not correct the world when it called her by her real name.